So, third book, The Ultra Processed People. And it's got a nice picture of a loaf of brown bread on the front. Now, the main reason behind that is that a lot of us will see a loaf of brown bread, seeded in this case, because that was his go-to. I think it was a well-known brand of brown bread that makes a seeded version. That was his go-to, and he thought, oh, it's healthy because it's brown bread, seeded. But ultimately it was a UPF because it's got tons of ingredients in it that are not necessary. So, an amazing book, lots of insights into the industry and how it works and why we've ended up where we are with most of our foods on the shelves being UPF, which is really sad. So this will encourage us to cook even more from scratch. Anything you look at, we've started looking at the ingredients labels a lot more anyway with all the food we consume, and we have our Zoe app where we can scan food and barcodes, and they'll rate it, rank it and score it on one of their scoring factors is it ultra processed, because it will analyze all the ingredients. So it looks at lots of ingredients that are basically not recognizable as store cupboard, you wouldn't have in your kitchen. So just some on a list I've got here: maltodextrin, monosodium glutamate, the famous MSG that finds its way into lots of stuff, which there's been big waves of media coverage on these things, but they quieten down, and this stuff is still around. It's in lots of things. Disodium isonate, disodium glutamate, sodium caseinate, modified food starch, monoglyceride, diglyceride, and all the inverted corn syrups, palm oils, anything that you don't know what it is in there to make it taste more appealing. The fat, the salt, the way it behaves in the mouth and the tongue to make it addictive. And there's a few quotes in here that are amazing about us chasing nutrition, where we eat this ultra processed food and we keep eating it because we're chasing nutrition that we're not getting, and that's why it becomes almost addictive. I'll read another couple of quotes from it. Just 12 plants and 5 animals make up 75% of all the food that's eaten or thrown away, it says. 12 plants, and we're encouraged to eat at least 30 plants a week. There is far less energy in our food than it takes to make it. So that looks at the whole industrial process of growing food, for example, to feed animals, and growing food and then ultra processing it in all these big factories. 80% of the world's farmland is used to graze animals or produce animal feed. And the last one I'll look at is the British Nutrition Foundation is funded by all the companies that produce ultra-processed food, including Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all the big food groups. They fund the British Nutrition Foundation that's giving out advice on how we should eat. So lots of foods feature in it as, the ultimate bad stuff like Pringles and Greggs sausage rolls from Iceland, they said contained over 40 ingredients. All the, the drinks, all the fake sugar, the aspartame and all that in soft drinks. It looks at companies like Nestle and stuff they've done by taking this huge ship over into this, I think it's South America, somewhere near the Amazon, where they just sailed the ship in full of all their products, pretending they were doing a good thing, getting all these villagers addicted to Kit Kats and terrible stuff. Call out a few big names, big companies and their products, and the stories about how these big companies are trying to get their products through onto the market. In the US, a lot of companies pretty much self-regulate. There is the Food and Drug Administration, but the companies are sort of pretty much allowed to just say and tell the Food and Drug Administration that their products are safe. And the stories that they go into about how horrific some of the the production methods are behind some of the basics that find their way into all of our foods is horrific. It calls out the normal Coke and Pepsi. It calls out the Pringles, but even the products like a loaf of bread that have become ultra processed. It calls out even companies like Pret a Manger who have all this lovely food, lovely marketing, all fresh natural ingredients. But I was actually in one the other day, and I was scanning the sandwiches, and no matter what sandwich it was, whether it was vegan, veggie or meat or whatever, they were scoring like 20 in their 20. This is out of 100, my Zoe score, 25. I couldn't even get a sandwich higher than 30. And they look really nice, they look really fresh, and pretty much it's the bread that really kills the score. Their bread they use is pretty much ultra processed like this. It's got all the additives, which is pretty shocking. And he contacts these companies, and they just they're probably owned by private equity groups that just want to make money. So why would they use real bread that costs a bit more in their sandwiches? It looks at the whole chain, the whole cycle of the UPF and the disease it causes. It's responsible for so much of the disease and obesity that's all on the increase. And it looks at some of these companies that are producing the UPF are also involved in then trying to cure the diseases that they're creating. So we've got the ultra processed food being fed to everyone, making a huge amount of money, and then on the other end we've got the drug companies curing the disease, and they're all making a huge amount of money as well. So fascinating. It's been out for a couple of years actually. Eye-popping and enlightening. Some of the quotes on the back: incendiary and infuriating, this book is a diet grenade and bold in brutal truth about how we are fed deadly delights by very greedy evil giants. So it might change the way you look at food for the better. That's the end of that book, and that's the end of these three. They're all here at WKD Yoga in our library if you do attend here. So I've read them, so feel free to come and borrow them at any time. They're all here at WKD Yoga in our library if you do attend here. So I've read them, so feel free to come and borrow them at any time.